Thanks for tuning in. Let me know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. Let's dive in. I gripped the PlayStation 5 boxes in my hands, feeling the weight of them as I climbed the stairs to my house. The old floorboards groaned under my boots with every step. The extra hours I'd put in at the medical device company were finally paying off. I could already picture the look on my twins' faces when they saw their presents on Christmas morning. Mason and Luke were at that age where my approval meant the world to them, and I'd never let them down. Then I heard Heather's voice, sharp and sugary, carrying through the door to the boys' room. I froze, a bad feeling settling in my gut. That tone was one she saved for manipulation, and I'd been married to her long enough to recognize it. "Your real father is Jason," Heather was saying. "He's been wanting to tell you for so long." My fists tightened around the boxes. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but my mind was sharp, processing every word. I had to know more. "That doesn't make sense," Mason said, his voice confused. "Dad's been here our whole lives. He's the one who taught us baseball." Luke finished his brother's sentence, just like they always did, often thinking the same way. "He's been to every game. He even coaches when Coach Stevens is sick." Heather's laugh rang out, dismissive and biting. It made my skin crawl. "That's because Jason couldn't be there. His job as chief surgeon keeps him busy, saving lives. You have no idea how hard it's been for him, watching another man raise his kids." My stomach twisted. "If he's our real dad, why didn't he say anything before?" Mason asked, voice full of doubt. "Because we had to wait," Heather whispered, almost conspiratorial. "The house will be paid off next month. I've already talked to my lawyer. At Christmas dinner, we'll tell everyone the truth. I'll get everything in the divorce, and then we'll be a real family. With Jason." That silence hung in the air like a weight. I could imagine what my boys were feeling. Mason would be clenching his jaw like he did when he faced a tough pitch. Luke would be sitting there, quiet, processing everything with that methodical brain of his. "Does Dad know?" Luke's voice was barely a whisper. "Of course not," Heather said, and I could hear the scorn in her tone. "He's not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. Always so trusting, so easily led. That's why Jason chose him." I'd had enough. The pieces were all falling into place now. The long hours at the office, the contracts with Jason's hospital, those dinners where Jason always guided the conversation toward certain suppliers. I had thought it was just good business and hard work, but I was wrong. I'd been a fool. I quietly stepped away from the door, moving silently down the hallway. Years of coaching baseball had taught me how to move quietly when I needed to. The PlayStation boxes went into my study along with the rest of the Christmas gifts I'd planned to wrap that night. They'd be used for something else now. I pulled a folder from my desk drawer. It had the papers for the house we'd bought together, the house Heather was about to take away from me. Her words about getting everything in the divorce echoed in my mind. She had always underestimated me. She thought my kindness was weakness, but that would be her first mistake. I grabbed my phone and typed a quick message to Detective Emma Larson. "Need to meet. Old place. It's about Jason Williams." Emma had been building a case against corrupt hospital administrators for years. I had a feeling she knew exactly what was going on. I tucked my phone away and glanced at the photo on my desk. It was of me teaching the twins how to fish last summer. The smiles on their faces were the same as mine, even if they didn't share my blood. They were my sons, and I'd make sure they learned one final lesson from me: how to make sure justice is served, no matter the cost. The diner where Emma and I met hadn't changed in the 20 years we'd known each other. The cracked leather booths, the burnt coffee smell, the flickering neon sign. Nothing was different. It was perfect. No one who mattered ever came here. Emma slid into the booth across from me, her badge tucked into her jacket but not on display. This wasn't an official meeting. She glanced at me, her eyes narrowing. "You look like hell, Jake," she said. "Wait till you hear why." I slid a manila envelope across the table. Everything I could find on the medical supply contracts between my company and Central Hospital. Pay attention to the pricing structure. Emma's eyes narrowed as she flipped through the documents. She had a poker face that came from 20 years on the job, but I saw the slight tightening around her eyes when she came to a page. "These prices are inflated by 40%, she muttered. "Above market rate." I nodded. I always thought it was just a healthcare markup. But today, I learned otherwise. The waitress came to our table, but Emma waved her off without looking up. Tell me everything. I laid it all out. The way Heather and I met, how Jason conveniently offered me a job right before the twins were born, the steady stream of contracts that led to my rapid promotion. Son of a... Emma flipped through some bank statements. The kickbacks are being funneled through offshore accounts. But that's not even the worst part. She pulled out a thicker file. Those medical devices you've been selling, they're counterfeits. High-quality knockoffs from China. Your signatures all over the import docs. The coffee in my cup went cold as Emma explained the full scope of the operation. Jason wasn't just a friend who'd betrayed me. He'd built an entire criminal network around me. Every promotion, every bonus, every proud moment of my career had been part of his plan to set me up as the fall guy. We've been trying to crack this case for years, Emma said, frustration clear in her voice. But every lead comes back to you. You're the perfect patsy, the good family man, the little league coach, active in the community. No one would ever believe you were involved in anything like this. I laughed, but it wasn't a laugh, more like a bitter chuckle. And if anyone starts asking questions, they can always reveal the truth about the twins. Emma paused. We could arrest them now. We've got enough. I shook my head. No, they've spent 13 years building this. I owe them the same courtesy. I showed her the email from the real estate lawyer. I need a favor. How much do you know about irrevocable trusts? Patricia took client confidentiality seriously, something that immediately impressed me. Rebecca entered the room like she was about to attend one of her high-profile hospital board meetings. But there was a crack in her perfect composure when she saw the trust documents laid out on the table. Those won't be enough, she said, placing a USB drive down like it was some kind of weapon. Jason's been using my charitable foundation to launder money. The foundation's legitimate work with third-world hospitals has provided perfect cover for smuggling counterfeit goods. Heather's been helping him move the profits offshore through a network of shell companies. I studied her carefully. The Rebecca Williams the first knew lived for charity galas and tennis matches, but this woman sitting across from me seemed like something entirely different. I have videos, she added, tapping the USB drive with her nails. Heather loves to brag during our spa days. She never noticed the diamond pin I always wear, the one with the built-in recorder. 3 years of conversations, each one more incriminating than the last. Emma picked up the drive. This is better than we hoped. There's more, Rebecca continued, her voice steady despite the storm she was weathering. Reaching into her Hermes bag, she pulled out a set of bank statements, each one showing transfers to accounts in the Cayman Islands, Singapore, and Switzerland. Charitable donations that never made it to the hospitals they were supposed to help. Then, she pulled out another folder, thicker this time. Proof that Jason knew about the twins before he pushed you into meeting Heather. I said nothing, just narrowed my eyes. Explain, I demanded, keeping my tone even. Heather wasn't just some random woman Jason pushed you toward, Rebecca explained. She was carefully selected, ambitious enough to play the long game, materialistic enough to be controlled by money, and most importantly, already pregnant with Jason's children. They needed someone with an impeccable reputation to front their operation. A devoted family man would never raise suspicion. Why help us? Emma asked. Rebecca's perfect posture faltered, and for the first time, I saw something raw in her eyes, pain. I couldn't have children. I had complications from a surgery Jason performed early in our marriage. He said it was unavoidable. But last month, I found records proving he made a deliberate choice during the procedure. Something about not wanting children complicating his plans. Rebecca stood, smoothing down her designer suit as if she were about to leave a grand gala. Heather thinks she's taking everything from you. But at Christmas, make sure she loses it all instead. After she left, Emma plugged in the USB drive, and the evidence was damning. Years of careful documentation, financial records, recorded conversations, even video footage from a foundation event where Jason had met with suspicious medical suppliers. We reviewed the information, and my expression didn't change as I watched the evidence pile up on the screen. Time to accelerate the plan. Later, I found myself in the garage, organizing the workbench with military precision. Tools laid out in order of use, instruction manuals open to the relevant pages, backup supplies ready if needed. I've always believed in teaching through preparation. The key to maintaining any machine, I explained to Mason as he worked alongside me, is understanding its parts. Cars, houses, bank accounts, they all follow the same principle. Luke looked up from his notes. Like how you taught us to break down complex math problems? Exactly. I smiled, remembering countless late nights working at the kitchen table. Big problems become manageable when you understand their components. This week, the lessons had taken on new urgency. Yesterday, it was home repair, fixing leaky faucets, replacing electrical outlets, basic plumbing. Tomorrow, it would be financial management, budgeting, investing, understanding credit scores. Things that should have been taught over the years, but were now compressed into days. Dad, Mason said, his voice careful. We overheard Mom on the phone with Uncle Jason last night. I stopped working, laying the wrench down slowly. What did you hear? The twins exchanged a look, the silent communication I'd seen since their birth. Finally, Luke spoke. She was laughing about Christmas dinner. Said something about the big reveal and how you wouldn't know what hit you. She said we'd be moving into Uncle Jason's mansion. Mason's voice trembled with anger. That we wouldn't need to know working-class skills anymore. I set the tools down and faced them. Life reveals truths at unexpected moments. What matters isn't the size of your house or the money in your account. It's your character, how you handle both victory and defeat. That evening, after ensuring Heather was busy with phone calls to Jason, I set up the recording equipment in my study. Emma had helped me organize everything: birthday messages, graduation speeches, life advice for their milestones, videos that would bridge the gap when I couldn't be there in person. The hardest choices in life, I recorded, aren't between right and wrong. Those are easy. The hard choices come when you have to decide between justice and comfort, between truth and stability. Strength isn't about winning every battle. It's about choosing which battles to fight. In between recordings, I taught the twins critical skills: how to spot surveillance equipment, the importance of keeping critical documents in secure locations, when to trust their instincts about people's true intentions. Heather noticed how much time I was spending with the boys and misinterpreted it. Getting in some last-minute father-son bonding, she mocked one evening, her tone dripping with false sympathy. How sweet. I met her gaze steadily, just preparing them for the future. Her laugh was cold. Oh, don't worry. Jason and I have their future all planned out. She didn't notice my smile. Yes, their future was indeed planned out, just not the way she imagined. Christmas morning would not be their triumph. It would be their undoing. They'd underestimated my patience, mistaken it for passivity. But the greatest error they made wasn't in betraying me. It was in underestimating the power of real fatherhood. The truth is both a gift and a burden. And now, I had given my sons everything they needed to bear both with honor. The evidence against Heather was overwhelming. From the transcripts, it was clear she wasn't just an accomplice. She was one of the masterminds behind the scheme. She had used her connections to introduce Jason to corrupt hospital administrators. Together, they laundered money through fake charity events and even worked with international suppliers who sold counterfeit medical equipment. The prosecutor called her the spider at the center of the web. Emma told me Heather got 8 years for conspiracy and fraud. It could have been worse, but Heather's cooperation helped take down 3 other hospital networks running similar scams. I looked at the photos of my son's achievements. There were honor roll certificates, debate team victories, and science fair awards. Their progress had been amazing. The rules for them were simple: maintain a 3.0 GPA and stay out of trouble, and they would have access to the house and the college fund. Both had kept perfect 4.0s since freshman year. They both graduated high school as valedictorians. Emma showed me their college acceptance letters. Mason was in law school, now at the top of his class at Harvard, specializing in medical fraud and ethics. His professors said he had a real knack for untangling complex financial crimes. Luke was in medical school at Johns Hopkins, focused on patient advocacy and medical ethics. He had already published 2 papers on improving the way medical devices are checked for safety. They were building something good out of all of this, something that mattered. Emma told me Heather had tried to reach out after getting early release. She sent long letters about forgiveness and family. The boys sent back copies of their college application essays instead. Both of them wrote about learning the difference between biological parentage and real fatherhood. Emma showed me a newspaper clipping from that Christmas morning. The boys had written this letter 6 months after everything came out. Every major paper in the state had run it. I carefully unfolded the letter. The words hit me hard. Blood doesn't make a father. Love does. The man who taught us honor by example, who protected us even when he had to walk away, and who ensured we had a future, even when it couldn't include him, that's our real father. We don't need a DNA test to prove it. Our dad taught us that character isn't about winning every fight. It's about choosing the right battles and being willing to sacrifice for what matters. He showed us that love isn't about possession or control, but about doing what's right, even when it breaks your heart. Some people will say he abandoned us. They're wrong. He gave us the most valuable gifts a father can give: the truth, the tools to build our future, and an example of real integrity. Biology didn't make him our father. His choices did. And our choice is clear. We're proud to be Jake Baker's sons. That letter changed everything, Emma said. You went from being the villain to a hero overnight. Rebecca's patient advocacy organization used it to push through major reforms in medical device regulations. They call it the Baker Protocol now. She showed me some recent photos on her phone. The boys had kept the house just as I left it, with one addition: a home office. It was always ready. They had my birthday and graduation videos, but now they weren't just memories. Before making big decisions, they'd watch clips from those videos, asking themselves what I would have advised. I stayed calm, but inside, I felt a bit of warmth as Emma kept talking. Jason was still in federal prison, serving 15 years. His appeals had been denied. Judges weren't kind to doctors who knowingly implanted counterfeit medical devices in their patients. Heather had been released after 6 years, and when she tried to get back in touch, the boys sent her copies of their college essays. They'd both written about the same defining moment, that Christmas morning when they learned that truth and justice weren't just ideas, they were choices that sometimes break your heart. Rebecca had divorced Jason and used the settlement to expand her advocacy work. The boys volunteered there during breaks, helping to identify suspicious medical supply patterns in hospitals across the country. They were turning everything they went through into something that helped others. Jake sat in silence, reading his son's words. Each line reflected the values he had tried to teach them about character, justice, and the difference between being a biological parent and a real father. Emma said quietly, "The real gift wasn't the DNA test or the trust. It was the choice you gave them that Christmas morning, to define family by genetics or by character. They chose well, Jake. They chose to be your sons." In that moment, I allowed myself a smile. I hadn't lost my family that Christmas morning. I taught them the most important lesson of all, that love isn't about blood or circumstance. It's about the choices we make, the principles we stand by, and the legacy we leave behind. And in that lesson, my sons had found their true inheritance.